rise in body or spirit and join us in singing our opening hymn, number 201, Glory, Glory, Hallelujah. The lyrics are on the screen.
So during our service today, we shall offer the words of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. in much the same language as he used during the mid-20th century. And this morning's opening words are some of what he had to say about nonviolence.
We who engage in nonviolent direct action are not the creators of tension. We merely bring to the surface the hidden tension that is already alive. We bring it out into the open where it can be seen and dealt with. Like a boil that can never be cured so long as it is covered up, but must be opened with all its ugliness to the natural medicines of air and light, injustice must be exposed with the tension its exposure creates to the light of human conscience and the air of national opinion before it can be cured.
The aftermath of nonviolence is the creation of the beloved community. The aftermath of nonviolence is redemption. The aftermath of nonviolence is reconciliation. The aftermath of violence is emptiness and bitterness. This is the thing I'm concerned about. Let us fight passionately and unrelentingly for the goals of justice and peace, but let's be sure that our hands are clean in this struggle. Let us never fight with falsehood and violence and hate and malice, but always fight with love, so that when the day comes that the walls of segregation have completely crumbled in Montgomery, that we will be able to live with people as their brothers and sisters. 1957.
Civilization and violence are antithetical concepts. Negroes of the United States, following the people of India, have demonstrated that nonviolence is not sterile passivity, but a powerful moral force which makes for social transformation. Sooner or later, all the peoples of the world will have to discover a way to live together in peace, and thereby transform this pending cosmic elegy into a creative psalm of brotherhood. If this is to be achieved, man must evolve for all human conflict a method which rejects revenge, aggression, and retaliation. The foundation of such a method is love. 1964.
I am quite aware of the fact that there are persons who believe firmly in nonviolence who do not believe in a personal God. But I believe that every person who believes in nonviolent resistance believes somehow that the universe is, in some form, is on the side of justice. May the light of our chalice remind us that there is something unfolding in the universe. Whether one speaks of it in an unconscious process or whether one speaks of it as some unmoved mover, or whether someone speaks of it as a personal God, there is something in the universe that unfolds for justice. 1967. Thank you.
Let your little light shine, shine, shine. Let your little light
Oh, come on, y'all. It's the start of a new year. I haven't been back here since December. Good morning! Good morning! Yay! There you are. Welcome to the Eno River Unitarian Universalist Fellowship, or ERUUF as we like to say. My name is Reverend Jacqueline Brett. I'm the lead minister here, and whoever you are, wherever you come from, whatever your race, your gender identities, whomever you love, and wherever you are on your spiritual journey or in your search for truth, meaning, and liberation, you are welcome here in beloved community. Yes. And if you are visiting with us for the first or perhaps even the second time, we invite you to rise in body or spirit so that we might give you an ERUUF welcome. Yay. Thank you all for choosing to spend this Sunday morning with us. And if you should come back, which I hope you will, at 10 a.m. on Sundays, we have a class called Inquirers for visitors and newcomers. And it's an opportunity to learn some things about ERUUF and also share some things about yourself as well. And that takes place in the building next door. And we hope you will come so that you can do just that. And we do provide childcare. I saw someone in the back with a little one. So there is childcare during that time. And if you are online and you have a chat box available to you, please also let yourselves be known so that you can receive a welcome there as well. So come on now, Richard, smile. What's on your mind? You sound like something's really on your mind here. Look, okay, I'm seeing like a little trio over here. Yeah, are you okay? Yes, you're with buddies. Okay, great. You just seemed very lost in thought. No one can ever say that I'm not paying attention out here. But at any rate, we have an artist in residence. His name is Demeanor, and he has started his workshops on this past Wednesday. Demeanor is a hip-hop banjo player who happens to be the nephew of Rhiannon Giddens, and his workshop was awesome, and he has five more. The next one is this Wednesday at 7 p.m. They're interactive. They're very engaging. He brought amazing instruments for us to see and told us some amazing history. So that it's open to all. So I invite you to attend, and it's child-friendly. It starts at 7, though, but please do make it out. And after that, the next 3 are all on Saturday afternoons, so check e-news for times. In addition, Demeanor will be here the last weekend in February to do worship with us as well, and we'll also have a concert here in May. So let's celebrate our artist in residence, someone that we have here. Celebrate him not only by your applause, but by your attendance as well. I mean, he would appreciate that. Today, our guest speaker is the Honorable Dr. Henry C. McKoy, Jr. He's preaching our sermon today. He has held 2 presidential appointments in the U.S. Department of Energy for the Biden-Harris administration from 2022 to 2025, following a distinguished career in finance, investing, business, higher education, and public service. Immediately prior to his presidential appointments, Dr. McKoy served in a number of academic appointments at North Carolina Central University, UNC-Chapel Hill, Duke University, and Harvard University. And from 2010 to 2012, Dr. McKoy served as a member of the North Carolina Governor's Cabinet, appointed by Governor Beverly Perdue as the Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Dr. McKoy has a BSBA from Kenan-Flagler Business School at UNC-Chapel Hill, a master's degree from the Nicholas School of the Environment at Duke University, and a PhD from the UNC-Chapel Hill's Department of City and Regional Planning. Please join me in giving Dr. McKoy a warm ERUUF welcome. And Dr. McKoy has a good sermon. He keeps calling it a speech, but it'll preach. So it's a good sermon. So just stay attentive. So in addition, right now, we usually have a Weaving Beloved community. And today, our Weaving Beloved community are with Devin Chilton and Lily Tarr, who are going to share some things with us about coming of age.
Good morning. We are Lily Tarr
and Devin Chilton, and we are here representing the youth in this year's Coming of Age program. Lily, since all of you ruffians might not know what Coming of Age is, could you explain it to them?
Sure, Devin. Coming of Age is a class of youth in the 9th and 10th grade that asks us to think about what we believe, what we don't believe, and what we want and how we want to be in the world. We started meeting in October of 2024 and will wrap up in May of 2025 with a Sunday service where we read statements or credos about what each of us believe at this point in our life. There have been many services at ERUUF where coming of age groups have read their credos to the congregation.
This summer, after we're done meeting, 6 youth and 2 chaperones will head to Boston, where the Unitarian Universalist Association headquarters is located, plus many other sites of UU significance. We'll also visit some United States historical sites, as well as do some fun things chosen by us youth. But getting us to Boston isn't the cheapest thing. Even though Reverend Jim will try to make it as affordable as possible, we could use your help. This Sunday and the next 4 Sundays during fellowship hour, stop by our table and board in the fellowship hall, and you could sponsor part of our trip. You can also donate for something smaller, like purchasing a subway pass, or for us to take a tour of a historic UU location. Or you could donate for something bigger, like paying for a plane ticket or a hostel stay for a youth.
Whatever you can contribute helps us take this special opportunity as part of our journey toward becoming adults and learning about Unitarian Universalism. If you're online and want to give to help our trip, you can donate through the giving portal on the website. Just go to the ERUUF website, look for the green button at the top of the page that says Give, then hit the button that says Give Now, and when asked, list the fund as Coming of Age. Thank you for supporting our journey as growing UUs, and we hope to see you at the table during fellowship hour.
I can't believe how big they are.
They're real sharp. They are really sharp. I'm going to tell you, they came to me this morning and said, we need to make some edits to this. I'm like, yes, this is what I wanted. Anyway, all of our smallest and mediumest and tallest folks, if you want to come on down for our Time for All Ages this morning, it is a good story. It is a story that's especially for our smallest people. And it's not a funny story, it is a serious story. Welcome, welcome. Hello, hello. Good to see you all. Now, all of you especially tall folks who are in the pews, please, I'm going to need your participation in a moment. Today's story is about the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., because this is a weekend where we celebrate his birthday, and we talk a little bit about, what he has done. But there's something I really like about using a story, for one, that has color pictures, because here's the thing. Martin Luther King Jr. was alive not too long ago. Like, it was before you were born. It was before I was born. But all of our anybody here, raise your hand if you were alive while Martin Luther King Jr. was alive. Take a look behind you. Take a look. So there's a lot of people here who have been alive during the life of Martin Luther King Jr. So this is not somebody who was a long time ago. Now, maybe a long time to you and me. Maybe you and me. What are you saying back there? You see what happens? But the other thing about this story, this was written by one of Martin Luther King Jr.'s children. He has 4 children. They're all adults now. I think the child this is by is older than me. But his name is Martin Luther King III. And so this is a story about what it was like for him to have Martin Luther King Jr. as a dad. So some of this is serious, and some of it might feel a little scary if you were him. So hang with me on this, y'all. My sister Yolanda, who we called Yoki, and I wanted to go to Funtown more than anything. Well, kids, you know Daddy is working very hard so that you and all children can go to Funtown. But it's not possible today, Daddy would say. Maybe next week. But that week never came. You just don't want to take us, Yoki wailed. And finally, my mother explained, we were not allowed to go into Funtown. The rides and the roller coasters were for white people only. That's how it was when I was growing up. And my dad fought to change that. Yeah, a little bit of unfairness there. A lot of bit of unfairness there. At home, though, my father was just dad. He tossed the football with me, taught me how to shoot hoops, teased me, and played with me. He would lift me up and put me on top of the refrigerator. I imagine swinging from the ceiling fan, don't do that at home, as if I were flying in my own airplane. Then I would let Daddy catch me as I fell into his arms. Away from home, things were different. It wasn't always easy being the son of Martin Luther King Jr. What's your name? The 2 older boys asked. I don't remember, I said. I forgot. I knew it was wrong to lie. Why'd you say that, Marty? And my mother asked later. You know your name, it's your father's name. I knew, and I knew why I hadn't said my name. It was because I was afraid. Some people didn't like my father's work. Did you all know that there were some people who were angry about Martin Luther King Jr.'s work? You know that? Yeah. So when I was a kid in school, they didn't always tell us that. But it's true. Some people said he was stirring up trouble. My father never stole anything or hurt anyone. Even so, he was thrown in jail more than 30 times. Can you imagine being thrown in jail more than 30 times and you never hurt anyone and you never stole anything? He had the courage to stand up and say, this law is unfair. And sometimes he was arrested for that. He was sometimes arrested for saying the laws were unfair. Once a neighbor was driving me home from school. On the radio, we heard that the Reverend Martin Luther King and about 80 other people had been thrown in jail. I was terrified. I ran inside my house crying and asked my mother, why did Daddy go to jail? What did he do wrong? Does that sound like a scary thing to hear as a kid? Like on the radio? Yeah. My mother hugged me. Your dad went to jail to help people, she told me. Some people don't have enough to eat or comfortable homes or clothes to wear. They're not as fortunate as we are. Daddy went to jail to make it possible for all people to have these things. Don't worry, Daddy will be coming back. I carried her words close to my heart. A year later, when Daddy was arrested again, Yoki was afraid that he wouldn't be back for Christmas. This time, I was the one who consoled her. Don't cry, Yoki. Daddy will be back. He has to help the people. He has already helped some people, but he has to help some more. And when he finishes, he'll be back. And my father was not the only one in danger. Many people were hurt or even killed as they tried to change unfair laws. Once, as I marched in a protest, I saw a pretty lady with a bandage over her nose, you see over here. My mother explained that she'd been attacked by a police officer. The marchers were peaceful. You know what it means to be peaceful? If you're peaceful, it means you don't try and hurt people. Like, you're not hurting people, you're not doing anything mean to people. You're not trying to hurt people. So everybody in the march was peaceful, but that didn't stop people from trying to hurt them. Even police officers sprayed marchers with fire hoses or turned dogs on them. And when we talk about fire hoses, so has anybody ever had like a garden hose that pours water? And that can be kind of fun to run through. This is not that kind of hose. This is a hose that spurts water really hard, and it hurts to get hit by it. So it's different, and not in a good way. Later, a police officer came up to us with a huge dog that growled at me. I was terrified. "It's okay, Marty," my dad told me as he took my hand. And I felt safe. My dad was not a tall man, but he always made me feel like he was a giant. I was never afraid when I was with him. No matter how bad it got, my dad never fought back. We must meet violence with nonviolence. We must meet hate with love, he always said. Nonviolence wasn't just for marches and protests. It was for home as well. One Christmas, my brother Dexter and I got toy guns for presents. Most of the other boys in the neighborhood played with guns, and we wanted to be just like them. But we knew that guns were wrong. They were not toys, they were machines made to hurt and kill. Together, the whole family took the guns outside, made a bonfire, and destroyed them. That night, as my brother and I watched our gifts burn, we believed we were destroying all the hate in the world. One bonfire couldn't fix everything, but some things were getting better, like the law that kept black and white children from going to the same school. When I was in 3rd grade, that law was finally changed. My mother told Yoki and me that we'd be going to a new school in September. I didn't want to be the new kid who sat alone. Yoki felt the same way. "We don't want to go," we complained. "We don't want to be the only black kids at the school." That makes sense. My mother said she'd see what she could do. The day before school started, we found out that our 3 friends, the Abernathys, would be going with us to Spring Street School. I was glad to have my friends and my sister with me because when we got to the school, there were flash bulbs going off and TV cameras everywhere. Do you know what flash bulbs are?
No.
I didn't think so. They're like bright lights that would pop. If I remember right, they make a popping sound. But they light stuff up so that you can see it better when you take a picture. Do you know on cell phones where you can, when you take a picture and there's a flash of light? It's kind of like that. Sorry, I digress, but context. Why did reporters want to talk to us? We were just kids going to school like everybody else. Because, really, have you had a line of, if you go to school, have you had a line of people taking pictures of you when you go to school?
Yeah.
You have? I may not know what your life is like. Yeah.
At my Kingswood, one day it was called Picture Day, and and someone took a picture of the whole class and the teacher.
Well, see, that's a very nice way to have your picture taken at school. This was people taking pictures of only some of the kids, and they were shouting at, and people were being mean to them while they took the picture. It wasn't like that, was it? They were being nice to you when they took the picture, right? Yeah. So different context. We were each in different classrooms. It was strange to be the only black kid in my class. Have you ever felt like you were the only person like you in your class? Yeah. So, this is how Martin Luther King III felt in his class, because he was the only black kid in his class. I felt like everyone was staring at me the whole day. One kid even made a nasty comment. Wouldn't you rather go to school with your own kind? He asked, why aren't you at your own school? That's what we call bullying. We're all the same kind. We're all kids, and Spring Street is my school now, I said. My father fought for us to be just kids attending the same schools. It was what he meant when he said he dreamed of children being judged by the content of our character, not by the color of our skin. So here, I'll summarize a little bit. But Martin Luther King III talks about part of the way his dad changed the world and helped change the world was a little bit at a time, like one school at a time, one child at a time. And he did it with a lot of help from other people, too. A lot of people worked together. But Martin Luther King Jr. put a lot of leadership into that. And he says, we must continue to change minds as my father did. We must continue my father's work for freedom and equality for all. It wasn't always easy being his son, but I'm so proud to be that son, and I'm so proud to share his name. Yeah, here, I'm going to answer that in just a sec because I'm going out with you, okay? So we're going to head out to our religious exploration classes for today, which will have more story and more information and more learning about Martin Luther King Jr. Oh, that's... Oh, wow.
Peace, salam, shalom. 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 Please turn and greet your neighbor, especially if your neighbor is someone you do not know.
Please join me now in the spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life, we give thanks for the many gifts of this day. Today we celebrate and remember the life and ministry of the Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Inspired by his tireless work for justice, and our prayers, our worship, and our words and actions, may we face the challenges before us with compassion. May we acknowledge the need for healing, for reconciliation, and for justice. in the face of systemic racism, collective oppression, and the ongoing marginalization of Black and brown people. We pray for the courage to dismantle and change these unjust systems, to create a more equitable world for all. Each week, we also hold on our hearts joys and concerns, global and local. We hold on our hearts all those affected by the ongoing conflicts in Sudan, Gaza, Ukraine, and around the world. We hold on our hearts those impacted by ongoing and devastating wildfires, especially in California. We hold in our hearts Diane Blount as she recovers from a respiratory illness. We hold in our hearts the heart and soul of the world. May we find ways to remember the power of love to heal and transform. And let us also take a moment to hold all the joys, milestones, and successes that lay before us in life. May we continue to celebrate these moments on the journey together. In a spirit of unity and compassion, we lift up all of our prayers and blessings and honor this moment together in silence. And so it is. Amen, Ashe, and blessed be.
Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Hold on just a little while longer. Everything will be all right. Everything will be all right. Sing on just a little while longer. Sing on just a little while longer. Sing on just a little while longer. Everything will be all right. Everything will be all right. March on just a little while longer. March on just a little while longer. March on just a little while longer. Everything will be all right. Everything will be all right. Fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. Fight on just a little while longer. Everything will be all right. Everything will be all right. be all right. Everything will be all right. Everything will be all right.
Yes, thank you, Steve. We need more of that from you. I was just saying to Richard and company that we can do hard things, right? So, yes, we hold on a little while longer because we know we can do hard things. So the readings that we're going to offer right now, one of the things that has fascinated me about reading King's Words, and I always love to read King's Words, they're amazing, is looking at them over an arc of time. So that's part of why we have been saying the dates. So pay attention to just nuances and slight changes, and sometimes no change in some of the things he's had to say. And so now we do some readings about what he had to say about love. Can you hear me? I saw you fiddling with your, the person with the mask is the person sitting next to you. Yes, can you hear me? Okay, all right. Nonviolence is absolute commitment to the way of love. Love is not emotional bash. It is not empty sentimentalism. It is the act of outpouring of one's whole being into the being of another.
How you love your enemy is this. When the opportunity presents itself for you to defeat your enemy, that is the time which you must not do it. There will come a time in many instances when the person who hates you the most, the person who has misused you the most, the person who has gossiped about you the most, the person who has spread false rumors about you the most, there will come a time when you will have the opportunity to defeat that person. It might be in terms of a recommendation for a job. It might be in terms of helping that person to make some move in life. That's the time you must do it. That's the meaning of love. In the final analysis, love is not this sentimental something that we talk about. It's not merely an emotional something. Love is creative, understanding goodwill for all men. It is the refusal to defeat any individual. When you rise to the level of love, of its great beauty and power, you seek only to defeat evil systems. Individuals who happen to be caught up in that system, you love, but you seek to defeat the system. 1957.
Our ultimate end must be reconciliation. The end must be redemption. The end must be the creation of the beloved community. We have before us the glorious opportunity to inject a new dimension of love into the veins of our civilization. The type of love that I stress here is not eros, a sort of aesthetic or romantic love, not philia, a sort of reciprocal love between personal friends, but it is agape, which is understanding goodwill for all men. It is, or people. It is an overflowing love which seeks nothing in return. It does not begin by discriminating between worthy and unworthy people. It begins by loving others for their sakes and makes no distinction between a friend and enemy. It is directed toward both. It is this type of spirit and this type of love that can transform opposers into friends. It is love seeking to preserve and create community. This is the love that may well be the salvation of our civilization. 1957.
And I say to you, I have also decided to stick with love, for I know that love is ultimately the only answer to mankind's problems. And I'm going to talk about it everywhere I go. I know it isn't popular to talk about it in some circles today. And I'm not talking about emotional bosh when I talk about love. I'm talking about a strong, demanding love. For I have seen too much hate. And I say to myself that hate is too great a burden to bear. I have decided to love. 1967.
This call for a worldwide fellowship that lifts neighborly concern beyond one's tribe, race, class, and nation is in reality a call for an all-embracing and unconditional love for all people. When I speak of love, I am speaking of that force which all the great religions have seen as the supreme unifying principle of life. Love is the key that unlocks the door which leads to ultimate reality. 1967.
Fight on just a little bit longer. Fight on just a little bit longer. Fight on just a little while longer. Everything will be all right. Good morning, ERUUF. I think it's amazing how the Lord works sometimes, maybe most times. About a week ago around this time, I was trapped in Atlanta in a snowstorm. I've been trying to figure out my words, prepared, it's been a busy time, and that trip to Atlanta, which I didn't expect to get stuck in a snowstorm, it's kind of once in a decade, gave me a moment to sit, in the backdrop. And anytime you visit Atlanta and places like that, I think, it puts you kind of in this moment to think about the historic nature of the place. So I'm very, very thankful for that. I think first, I think it would be a fallacy on my part if I didn't start this talk with professing just how profoundly honored I am to have been asked to deliver this speech on such a special occasion. So I want to first thank the Reverend Brett for this invitation. Can we give her a round of applause? Let me tell you why we applauded her. She called me in early December and asked me if I would be willing to come and give this talk. And she also told me that she would be going on sabbatical. And so she wasn't sure whether she would be here or not. And so I know that she had to make effort to come here today to welcome me. And so I'm very thankful for that. I'm also thankful to the rest of the leadership of ERUUF for, giving me this honor, and the entire congregation for that matter. So I thank you for your grace. This is a congregation that I've had the pleasure of getting to know a little bit over the last several years, as it is a home church of my big sister, Lisa Jones. And my sister-in-law, Ann Verdine Jones. So I'm very happy to be back here inside these welcoming walls of ERUUF. But before I talk, I want to take a moment to thank my family for coming out and supporting me today. My wife, Yuba. My daughter, Jamila. My nephew, Lewis. But in addition to my family, I also see the face of, many longtime friends. Richard. I didn't know he was so much a part of the program. So I saw John back there greeting me when I came in. I see Dom here. See Atreus. My friend Floyd McKissick up there in the corner. So I feel like a home, and I've got a chance to meet so many new folks, and so I know I have new friends here as well. So my time before you will be brief, but I do hope to do some kind of justice to the namesake of this sermon, to Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I think anytime one is given the opportunity to speak in honor of Dr. King, it feels like a proud but great burden to do his life, his works, his legacy some kind of justice. Like many others who aim to be leaders of some substance and impact, Dr. King has been an influence on my life that goes beyond simple description. I have many books about Dr. King's life, like David Garrow's Bearing the Cross, or most recently, a biography by Jonathan Eeg, simply titled King. I have copies of his own books, like one that I know has been referenced numerous times over the past few months, especially by those who feel the weariness of the never-ending fight for justice. Where do we go from here? Not only do I have a Dr. King reader, which includes a collection of all his speeches in written form, but also have documentaries like Eyes on the Prize and cassette recordings of his most prominent speeches. For the last few years, as I have worked in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, and the place often targeted by Dr. King with his words and action, I've worked in an office which I garnished to include images of Dr. King. My King pictures encircled me in my office, as well as ornamented the hallways immediately outside of my office entrance along those of President Biden and Vice President Harris that I travel daily. I never wanted to forget the challenges faced by so many before me that ultimately allowed me to sit in such a prominent role and position. I wanted a perpetual reminder not to falter in my own duty to keep that tradition going, of preparing places of influence and impact for those that would follow me. Thus, on the corner of my large desk, I kept a black and white 8x10 photograph of Dr. King looking wearied and solemn while holding up his prison number plate with the words, "Our lives begin to end the day we become silent about things that matter." It gave me courage in the face of hard and challenging times when it became obvious that no matter how vaulted your position, there was still much and many to fight against. On my own weary and solemn days, when I honestly did not feel like engaging in one more battle, Dr. King's reminder of the many things that mattered gave me a second, third, and sometimes fourth wind. I could look up from that picture on my desk corner to my wall and see a much larger black and white image of Dr. King waving to the attendees of the 1963 March on Washington with joy and a great smile on his face. Or I could look at another wall and see a full color rendition of the Dr. King Memorial statue on the National Mall, a monument inspired by a line from his I Have a Dream speech. Out of the mountain of despair, a stone of hope. It's a statue that I walked by many times while working in DC. Those three photos in my office presented something of a trichotomy of understanding for me. It's the understanding that movements have their highs and they have their lows. They have their triumphs and they have their tribulations. They have their solemn moments and they have their joyous and smiling moments. But if we can make it through those peaks and valleys, then perhaps we too can leave a legacy for the generations that will follow us. I will use as my topic and my title today, a war that even Dr. King would approve of. The text for this morning will be drawn from several chapters of the book of Revelation. Most of us know it well. It's the final book of the Bible's New Testament. I'm using for context the book of Revelation, chapter 16 and 21. The title I've chosen may be a bit shocking as a subject matter today. After all, what Dr. King is most known for in America and countries all over the world are his nonviolence and his anti-war stances. At age 35 in 1964, he was the youngest person to ever win the Nobel Peace Prize for his opposition to war and his strategy of mass and peaceful civil disobedience adapted from the great pacifist Mahatma Gandhi. You might wonder, is this man here to convince us that Martin Luther King Jr., were he alive today, would be in support of some new war? Yes, I am. And those who know the Bible know that Revelation 16 is not for the faint of heart. It talks about the 7 bowls of God's wrath, where 7 angels are sent by God to destroy the earth. You're probably asking what kind of uplifting MLK Day message uses Revelation chapter 16 as its basis. You might wonder, is this man here to convince us today that a book referencing lightning, rumblings, peals of thunder, earthquakes, and the collapse of great cities across the nation the most appropriate frame to share this message on the eve of the holiday that celebrates this great human? Yes, I am. But I know this is a smart, intelligent, and studied crowd. Thus, you want to see the evidence that ties King's life to this message. After all, Martin Luther King has been called a lot of things, but a warmonger was not one of them. But in order for me to present that evidence, I must first position King here, in this moment, in this place that we all gather today to celebrate him and his life. Durham, North Carolina. Dr. King loved Durham. He loved coming to Durham. He had close friends in Durham, like the Mashaws, the McKissicks, and his Boston grad school classmate, Moore, the pastor who led the boycott of the Royal Ice Cream Parlor here in Durham in 1957, 3 years before the much better known Greensboro Woolworth sit-in. Dr. King traveled to Durham 5 times for official engagements from 1956 to 1964. This is pretty significant because King was in such demand from his rise onto the scene as a national leader in December 1955 as the leader of the Montgomery bus boycott, up until his assassination 12 and a half years later in Memphis, Tennessee, marching for the wages and rights of sanitation workers, that he rarely visited places multiple times unless he was engaged in active work there, such as protests and marches. Yet King did not travel to Durham to hold protests or marches. He first visited Durham on October 15, 1956, 2 months before the triumphant conclusion of the Montgomery bus boycott, which successfully launched the civil rights movement. He'd been invited by the Durham Business and Professional Chain, an organization that still exists today. He spoke at Hillside High School. During that visit in 1956, he promised the crowd that doors will open to you now that were never open in the past. King returned to Durham for a second visit when he flew in on a cold Tuesday morning, February 16, 1960, at the request of his friend, Reverend Moore. Though the attempted 1957 Royal Ice Cream Parlor sit-in had not caught on, similar attempts in Oklahoma and Kansas in 1957 and 58, when the Greensboro 4 of North Carolina A&T State University gained traction on February 1st, 1960, Reverend Moore did not pout about who should get credit for the first sit-in within North Carolina. He instead engaged and asked King to engage as well. Within a week of the Greensboro sit-in, similar activities had spread to Durham and Winston-Salem, followed by places across North Carolina like Charlotte, Raleigh, Elizabeth City, and my hometown of Fayetteville, before reaching Virginia and spreading across the Southeast. Reverend Moore immediately asked King if he would come to Durham for a strategy session on how to expand the movement with sit-in representatives from across North Carolina. Durham would be where they met to plot the next moves. King agreed, and 2 weeks later was in Durham, surveying Durham's downtown lunch counters that had been involved in the sit-ins, and meeting with these leaders from across the state, many of them college students. Thus, King's first engagement with the sit-in movement was here in Durham. King told those gathered to remember that this fight was not about black versus white, but about justice versus injustice. He offered his philosophy of jail, not bail. He told the crowd that let us not fear going to jail if the officials threaten to arrest us for standing up for our rights. He said maybe it would take this willingness to stay in jail to arouse the dozing conscience of our nation. Remember that term, the dozing conscience of our nation. It'll prove relevant later in this message. King suggested to the gathered strategists that they tell the store owners that if the lunch counters were not opened on an integrated basis, that the protesters would recommend that people of goodwill boycott the entire store. This was something he had learned in Montgomery during the boycott. It was not the moral or legal argument that won the day, but the economic loss of the city bus service that brought an end to the boycott. That same evening of February 6th, King spoke to a standing room only crowd of more than 1,000 at Durham's White Rock Baptist Church. King told those in attendance that night that they stood at the crucial point in the freedom movement. He stated, at a certain point in every struggle of great importance, a moment of doubt or hesitation develops. He finished by saying, when you have found, by the help of God, a correct course, a morally sound objective, equivocate. You do not retreat. You struggle to win a victory. He emphasized that the personal cost might be high, but one must resolve to bear this cost because the goal wasn't simply integration, but true personal freedom. Freedom is necessary for one's selfhood, for one's intrinsic worth. So any follower of King in his life knows that he experienced incredible depression, as anyone would in his position, with constant death threats and incredible pressures related to the movement. Yet it was widely reported that the 1960 visit to Durham renewed King's hope in the future of the movement. Nevertheless, I actually want to focus on King's final visits to Durham. More specifically, I want to concentrate on his very last visit, which happened in 1964. Actually, he had made several visits in Durham in 1964. 1964 was a monumental year for King. The year that the 1964 Civil Rights Act was signed, the year that he won the Nobel Peace Prize, a year after his seminal 1963 I Have a Dream speech in Washington, and a year before the 1965 Voting Rights Act. So just weeks before traveling to Oslo, Norway to receive his Nobel Prize, King made his last and final ever official stop in Durham. Early on November 13, 1964, King spoke at Duke University's Page Auditorium. At Duke, he said, human progress comes through the tireless efforts and the persistent work of dedicated individuals who are willing to be co-workers with God. The time is always right to do what is right. However, I actually want to focus on something later that evening. That night at 8 p.m., Dr. King addressed an overflow crowd of some 5,000 people of all races in North Carolina Central University's McDougal Gymnasium. His final speech ever in Durham, and the evidence I've been telling you about for a war that I know that even Dr. King would approve of. The title of his talk at NCCU that night was Remaining Awake Through a Great Revolution. It was not the first time that he had given that speech, but it had been to the Morehouse College graduating class of 1959. It was also not the last. He would give a version of this same speech a few other times over the rest of his life, tweaking it each time, including his final delivery of the Remaining Awake speech on March 31st, 1968, at the National Cathedral in Washington, D.C. 4 days later, he would be assassinated in Memphis, Tennessee. But 4 years before his untimely death, he gave a unique version of that speech here in Durham. So what were the last two words that Dr. King told Durham, North Carolina on November 13, 1964? Remain awake. To attempt to summarize King's words, I repeatedly listened to his 47-minute speech as I drove the 4 hours from D.C. to Durham this past week after I finished out my public service in D.C. and left my post. This time, listening to it on my cell phone via YouTube over my car speakers, which is pretty handy since I no longer have access to a cassette player, a VCR, or a DVD player to play the other artifacts from my personal collection. It kind of went the way of the flash bulb, right? But the problem with listening to King is that his speeches are so perfect and eloquent in his booming but soothing bass voice that you don't want to quote or paraphrase them. You just feel like you want to recite them verbatim. But I'm going to try my best to summarize. He said so many profound things. And I encourage you all to go out online, find his Remain Awake speech, and listen to it fully. In his Remain Awake speech, King began by declaring that the most important fact of the Rip Van Winkle story, for those of us who remember it from our childhood, was not that he slept for 2 full decades, but that he had slept through a revolution, specifically one that went from having a king to one that elected the first president of the United States. Perhaps an even more relevant observation in 2025, as some seem to advocate for a return to such a monarchy as when Van Winkle first went into his hibernation. King spoke of a triple revolution, of living during a time of technological revolution, what he called the impact of automation and cybernation. He talked of the revolution of weaponry, also of the human rights revolution. Today we are in somewhat parallel times, in the midst of a technological revolution. Have any of you heard of the rise of artificial intelligence? Though atomic and nuclear weapons remain, our cell phones and social media accounts are becoming the weapons of choice in cross-national and geopolitical battles. Anyone heard of the battle over TikTok? On the subject of human rights revolution, well, it kind of seems that revolution peaked with the response to the public murder of George Floyd, and that we are going through some kind of reverse revolution of sorts. This speech that I'm talking about was filled with some of Dr. King's most famous quotes. He said that we must all learn to live together as brothers, or we will all perish together as fools. He said we are tied together in the single garment of destiny, caught in an inescapable network of mutuality. He said whatever affects one directly affects all indirectly. He said for some strange reason, I could never be what I ought to be until you are what you ought to be. And you can never be what you ought to be until I am what I ought to be. He said that human progress never rolls in on the wheels of inevitability. He said that the time is always right to do right. And he said we shall overcome because the arc of a moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. But the speech was more than a series of sound bites. He talked about the challenges faced at the moment, but also talked about the opportunities. He said that it is an unhappy truth that racism is a way of life for the vast majority of white Americans, spoken and unspoken, acknowledged and denied, subtle and sometimes not so subtle. The disease of racism permeates and poisons a whole body politic. Even if one was to lobby in 2025 to take out the word vast, or to say that it is not the historical racism that we have known, but a vast indifference, his next point still holds true. He said, I can see nothing more urgent than for America to work passionately and unrelentingly to get rid of the disease of racism. Also in that speech, King talked about the concept of time. In fact, he called it the myth of time, responding to the oft-argued sentiment by both enemies and allies of the civil rights movement that time itself will solve all of our racial and economic ills. King proclaimed, no. Time is neutral and can be used either constructively or destructively. But he followed this with an apology by saying, and I'm sorry to say this morning that I'm absolutely convinced that the forces of ill will in our nation, the extreme righteous of our nation, his words, the people on the wrong side have used time much more effectively than the forces of goodwill. Does that sound familiar? He said that without hard, tireless, and persistent work of dedicated individuals who are willing to be co-workers with God, time itself becomes an ally of the primitive forces of social stagnation. And in 2025, evidently, social reversion. Mostly, King said over and over and over again that we must remain awake during a great revolution. But what King failed to mention in any of the texts under this title is that the prime decider of the revolution that Rip Van Winkle slept through was a war, the Revolutionary War. The Revolutionary War, also known as the American Revolutionary War, or the American War of Independence, was an 8-year battle that took place from April 1775 to September 1783, and part of the broader American Revolution for freedom, explicitly white freedom. But I believe that we can overlook this oversight by King. However, I believe if he had the opportunity to look at it anew, he might understand it differently. Sometimes revolution can only be achieved on the other side of a war. No, I'm not suggesting that King would instruct anyone to pick up guns or launch bombs. I'm not suggesting that he would tell folks to engage in violent hand-to-hand combat. I don't believe he would ever veer from his commitment to nonviolence. But I do believe that King would support at least one war, as he encouraged us during his last visit to Durham to remain awake during a great revolution. It's what I call the woke war. What does it mean to be woke? By historical definition, woke is the past tense of wake. Woke is the black synonym for the word awake and has been around since the early 1900s and used to refer to the awareness of social and political issues affecting African Americans, as in to stay woke. It means to be informed, educated, and conscious of social injustice and racial inequality. Many trace its prominence in the black vernacular to a song in 1938 by the acclaimed folk and blues musician Lead Belly, referencing the Scottsboro Boys, 9 teenagers falsely accused of raping 2 white women aboard a train in Alabama in 1931, with 8 of them originally sentenced to death from an all-white jury, with one as young as 12 years old. Lead Belly instructed his listeners to best stay woke. In other words, to be aware of the potential for racist violence and legal injustice in the South. But even before Lead Belly, young supporters of Abraham Lincoln in the 1860 presidential election formed a popular national movement called the Wide Awakes, campaigning for workers' rights and the abolition of slavery. But a decade ago, around 2014, woke found a resurgence after the killing of Michael Brown, as death after death of black unarmed citizens from police brutality and injustice rose, most prominently used as part of the Black Lives Matter movement. But isn't that exactly what King told us to do? To remain awake, to stay woke? Yet somehow we have allowed that term to be co-opted and turned into something negative. To be woke, or what is termed as wokeism. Yet oddly enough, even by those who try to disparage it, they define it accurately. They describe it as an umbrella term for progressive values. By their own admission, they have said that woke is the belief that there are systematic injustices in American society and the need to address them. You don't say. However, they follow this with the statement that we reject woke ideology, saying we would never, ever surrender to the woke agenda. I don't know about you, but woke sounds like exactly what I aim and intend to be. But as a result of this anti-woke movement, we see the rejection of education based on historical facts, the overturning of curative legislation aimed at equity, and most recently, a backtracking of corporate policies concerning diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility of people inclusive of lenses such as race, gender, and sexual orientation. It's become a dog whistle, a rallying cry for racism, sexism, and any other ism you can imagine, and a justification for overt and public discrimination, oppression, and suppression. Because of this, the only way to win this fight is through the woke war. Think of the woke war like the Cold War. No bombs have to be launched, no guns have to be drawn, no geographic invasion has to take place. However, intentional action is imperative. It is a battle of ideas expressed through how we make decisions, whom we engage with, how we hire and build teams, who gets access to educational and professional opportunity, and most importantly, where we decide to spend our money. Science, technology, arts, humanities, culture, markets, and politics are used as our tools of this war. Most importantly, truth must remain our greatest weapon. And we must battle to the end, especially if we want to take the wise counsel of someone who recently told us that we're not going back. I want a world where difference is appreciated and celebrated, not feared and mocked. In his Remaining Awake speech, King spoke of making America great decades before anyone else co-opted the sentiment as a veiled slogan of subjugation. He asked God for the strength to be Davids of truth against the Goliath of injustice and neglect, and to go on with the determination to make America the truly great America that it is called to be. He said that ultimately a great nation is a compassionate nation. But he also said, I submit that nothing would be done until people of goodwill put their bodies and their souls in motion. He said it will be the kind of soul force brought into being as a result of this confrontation that I believe will make the difference. So I believe King would approve of this war, the woke war, because to be woke is to be aware and alert. And like King told those students at the Durham strategy session in 1960, the business leaders won't listen to reason by giving everyone a place at the counter, at the table, in the boardroom, along the supply chain, then your dollar doesn't deserve a place in their bank accounts. We must remain awake and drive this revolution. We must win the woke war. I'm proud to be called woke. In what other environment is being woke a bad thing? If you're asleep at your desk, at work, or on the Zoom or Teams meeting, is that a good thing? Is being asleep on a dinner date good? Is being asleep driving your car a good thing? Some corporate oligarchs may say that self-driving cars will allow for that, but we're not there yet. If I was standing up here at this pulpit asleep, would that be a good thing? Then why should we accept sleeping in our politics and in our society? Right. Moving to conclude his speech, King said, let me close by saying that we have difficult days ahead in the struggle for justice and peace, but I will not yield to a politic of despair. He said, I'm going to maintain hope. He spoke of confronting Washington while admitting that the cards are stacked against us. So this returns me and returns us back to the beginning. I talked about the book of Revelation. Well, if you look at the two chapters I mentioned, chapter 16 and chapter 21, they represent contrasting after effects. In chapter 16, the earth is destroyed in ways that seem barbaric and unfathomable. It feels that the wrath is upon us. But in chapter 21, it speaks of a new heaven and a new earth. It says that the first heaven and earth has passed away. It says, I heard a loud voice from the throne saying, look, God's dwelling place is now among the people, and God will dwell with them. They will be God's people, and God will be with them and be their God. God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. There will be no more death or mourning or crying or pain, for the old order of things has passed. God, who was seated on the throne, said, I'm making everything new. Finally saying, write this down, for these words are trustworthy and true. In other words, as hard as it might have been in the recent months, now is not the time to retreat. God is with us. It may feel like the earth is on the path to destruction. However, God is making a path for a new way, and is not the one immediately in front of us. It is a path that only those who are truly woke can create in the years ahead if we commit to it and to make the best use of our time. Time is not neutral. So I don't believe that it was a coincidence that King's last speech in Durham was to tell us to remain awake through a great revolution, because Durham was a place that he came to talk strategy. Step up now and lead this revolution. We can't sleep through it. It must start with each of us. People around the world know of the world-class institutions that make up Durham and our unique history of equity leadership. We must draw on that history now. Don't let anyone force us into some hibernation. In his speech, King spoke of the critics and reporters who reminded him, as he spoke against unpopular notions of the time, that it was a perilous road for him. King's response was, vanity asks a question, is it popular? Conscience asks a question, is it right? There comes a time when one must take the position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but he must do it because conscience tells him it is right. He said, I believe today that there is a need for all people of goodwill to come with a massive act of conscience and say in the words of the old Negro spiritual, we ain't gonna study war no more. This is a challenge facing modern man. I believe he would add, unless it's the woke war. King was actually scheduled to come back to Durham once more, 4 years after his Remaining Awake speech at NCCU, but it would not be. Dr. King was originally scheduled to be in Durham on April 4th, 1968. However, he felt compelled at the last minute to be somewhere else, where he wouldn't be talking about strategy, but implementing it. He changed his travel plans for April 4th from Durham to Memphis for the Sanitation March. April 4th is the day that King will ultimately be assassinated while in Memphis. We always ask the question of what would MLK say if he were alive today, or what would he do in a particular situation? Well, my answer is that I hope that at age 96, he would be sitting somewhere relaxing and resting, and that we wouldn't have to call him every time we need saving or an answer. The greatest tribute that we can pay to Martin Luther King is to be the solutions to our own challenges. After his death, one of his leading pupils from the movement, Diane Nash, said, if people think that it was Martin Luther King's movement, then today they, young people, are more likely to say, gosh, I wish we had a Martin Luther King here today to lead us. If people knew how that movement started, then the question they would ask themselves is, what can I do? I'm here to tell you that what you can do here in ERUUF, in Durham, in any place that is watching this or hearing these words, is to stay woke and enlist in the woke war. Still, King left us with plenty of ammunition for this war, his words from his final visit and final speech in Durham. He reminded those gathered on that late night at North Carolina Central University that our challenge means realizing that we do have a dilemma because we have the legacy of slavery and segregation. He continues saying, it means that we are exactly 344 years behind, and he who gets behind in a race must forever remain behind or run faster than the man in front. This is at one and the same time our dilemma and our challenge. In 2025, I have to ask the question of whether we were expected to wipe out that 344-year deficit in just 60 years. Still, on that night, he noted that we must realize that violence and hatred are dangerous and tragic forces to be alive in any society. He warned violence is both impractical and immoral in the struggle for racial justice. He followed by saying that there's another way, the way of love, stating, I'm not talking about an affectionate, sentimental quality. He admitted it would be nonsense to tell oppressed people to love their violent oppressors in an affectionate sense. He said that he was talking about something much deeper. Lastly, Dr. King said to the crowd, if we will remain awake, standing up against evil in our societies, struggling in every creative movement to get rid of the evils that cloud our days, then we will see that brighter day. Then we will see that new America. I have faith in that new day. I believe it is coming. God bless you.
So I have to say that I had sent Henry a text and said, "Where are you going with that sermon of yours?" And he said, "I'm looking at Revelation 16 and 21. So I opened up my handy Bible and I said, "Holy smokes." So I sent him a text back and said, "I don't know about this with our non-Bible reading people up in anyway." He said, "Don't worry, I'm using it as a point of reference." And I was like, "I don't know." So you did good, brother. Thank you so much. We all know that as we seek to be the beloved community that King spoke about, that it takes a lot to do that. It takes the force of our will. It takes our wokeness to do that. It takes our time, our talent, our imagination, and of course it takes our treasure. And so as our greeters come forward with the collection pouches, we hope that you will offer something. And if you don't have anything to put in the pouch, you may point your device to the QR code and it will lead you directly to our giving portal. And I would be remiss not to mention that we are in the last few weeks of our challenge grant. And for those of you who are members and friends of ERUUF, you probably know something about that. So please do not forget that very important grant that we are raising money for. Turn it over to you. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up, hold everybody up, hold everybody up, hold everybody up, hold everybody up. Just because you look like you and I look like me doesn't mean we can't be friends. You're not my enemy. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up. 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 People all around the world sometimes feel so sad, but when others show they care, well, things don't seem so bad. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up, hold everybody up, hold everybody up, hold everybody up, hold everybody up. Thank you, Reverend Dr. King, for showing us what love can bring. Thank you, Madina, for lifting up South Africa. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up. We gotta hold everybody. We gotta hold everybody up. 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 We give thanks for all the gifts of our beloved community, the gifts of our ability to gather together on a day like today, the gift of holding each other in our hearts tomorrow, keeping the television turned off, And if you wish, you could also watch. It's a historical moment. But to hold everybody, holding each other. We give thanks for the gift of music in our beloved community chorus and the gift of our guest speaker, Henry McKoy. So anyway, let's lead us out, sing us out.
Rise and body your spirit, please. And join me in singing our closing hymn, I'm on My Way, number 116 in the gray hymnal. And the lyrics are on the screen.
Today's closing words are from Martin Luther King's Nobel Peace Prize acceptance address in 1964. And he said, "I believe that unarmed truth and unconditional love will have the final word in reality." And this is really important. Listen carefully to this. He said, "Right, temporarily defeated, is stronger than evil triumphant." Let us remember that, my dear friends. Amen, ashe, and may it be so. Go in peace.